In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Positivity Podcast on Anfield Index. My name is Matt McElroy, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. I am joined by Lubo Markov and Paul Jenkins. How are you doing today, guys?
Doing very well. Yep, it's been a good Saturday here. I was at my eldest son's football this morning, my youngest son. He had a free week, so I was at Eli's football this morning, and he scored his first goal for the club. So that's always a nice. It's always a nice way to spend a Saturday, especially when you're a defender. He was a defender who came on for the last 20 minutes and played as striker, and managed to get a goal. So he's done all right. So yeah, it's been a good Saturday.
That's really great. It's nice to hear that he got a goal and got it in before the end of the game.
He's wanting a goal bonus, but we haven't discussed those terms yet because I didn't really think it would come around.
What might you do?
I think he's wanting 20 quid.
I was going to say like extra ice cream, like.
Oh no, that wouldn't cut it. No, not at all.
Oh no! Come on.
No, it has to be money. It has to be a decent amount. Ice cream, no way.
Nah, darn. I thought I was trying to get you off easy.
Not a hope.
Yeah. And Lubo, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's another lazy Saturday here. I got my workout in this morning, and then it's actually a beautiful day, very clear day, but it's chilly. I think now that Thanksgiving is next week, and usually this is around the time that the weather cools down a bit in this part of the country, and you could feel it. I think we're getting into the proper holiday seasons coming up. So I'm good. And Paul, I think your son with these bonuses, you want to watch out for FFP rules and all that. You don't want to have points deductions, So be careful how much you pay him for these bonuses under the table,
I don't want to have any pound deductions out of my pocket. That's what I don't want.
Say that, Paul?
I don't want any pounds deductions out of my pocket. That's more what I'm worried about.
Indeed.
See, now that he's already scored the goal, you couldn't have negotiated it down before. So.
Oh dear.
Yeah, Lubo, I think that I'm in the same boat as you. It started to get quite cold here as well, so we're starting to definitely get in towards the winter. Luckily, it's been very sunny, so it's been nice to have some sunny days, even though the daylight hours are getting pretty short as we get into the holidays. But I think it's a good point where we should get into our questions. So our opening question is, how boring is international soccer? Paul, do you want to get us started on that one?
Oh, I hate international soccer. It fries my head. I cannot be bothered with international football. I was standing chatting to one of the other dads there this morning on the touchline, and we were just talking about, obviously we're Northern Ireland supporters, so we were just talking about how bad Northern Ireland are, and I think that always determines like what your outlook on international football is, how your national team's doing. But like, oh my goodness, we are shocking. But like, I don't know, like, don't know about you guys, but like, even just watching other teams on the international stage, it just feels incredibly boring at the minute. Maybe it's because we have like so many international breaks and international competitions and international friendlies, and there's a competition for this, that, and the other. And it just feels like you play 4 Premier League games and then it's an international break. You play 4 Premier League games, international break. It's like, my goodness, like it didn't in my head, and I don't know whether like no statistical back up for this, but it feels as if we're having more international games than we've had at any other point in time. And it's like absolutely frustrating. The quality of the football is slow. It's not and like it's not fun to watch. So outside of like tournament football, I just get really frustrated with all these friendlies and National League this, and I don't even know what the terminology for what the different friendlies are all called. Or the Nations League, isn't that what it's called? Nations League. It just annoys me. And and the other thing, right? All the top teams, they don't want to send their players to play internationally. So you have the likes of Ederson there, gets injured, inverted commas. You can't see my fingers because we're on a radio podcast thing, but like he gets injured, and you're like, right, okay, so that means that Alisson has to go and play, and Man City are trying to keep their players from going, and we try and do it. We're trying to say, oh, he's got a wee niggle, he's got this, that, and the other, and you don't want your players going on international duty. And I think there's kind of that Naby Keita thing, where every time he went on international duty, he came back injured. So you kind of always got that worry where the top players now, they want to play for the country, but at the same time, their clubs don't want them playing for the country, and it's just like, I don't know. I think the quality of international football is terrible, and it's just like, it's not for me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I've like almost completely stopped watching these games during these breaks. Like rarely will I turn them on, but like if we get to the tournament, then yes, then I'll watch. So like Copa America, World Cup, like I'll watch that type of game where it actually seems like the players care. There seems like there's a lot more on the line. And then it becomes interesting. They actually like the pace of the game's a bit faster, like you said. But up until then, it's just all these games. It doesn't seem like there's much going on. And like the U.S., in terms of their like schedule, the games that really matter don't happen until like 2026 now. I think that we will play in the Copa America that's in the U.S. next summer, but like outside of those like 3 or 4 games, the U.S. doesn't really have any like real games until the World Cup that we host. So it's just going to be like years of nothing.
Boring.
So yes, boring soccer. Lubo, what do you think?
So in general, I agree with you, especially when it comes to international soccer in Europe. In North America, North and Central America. I think the one exception that I would make is South America. And usually those are the games that I try to watch during these international breaks. Not only because we have now players who are playing, so like Lucho and Darwin, now McAllister, Alisson started as well. But not just the player interest, but just those games are fun. And there's something about, I would say, South American soccer where every game is passionate. And I think you really don't see this in Europe as much. Definitely don't see this much in North America. And partly because so many of the tournaments are expanded so much. I think it's a little bit tougher for the World Cup with the old format because you didn't have as many, even from Europe, you didn't have as many countries that would qualify. But now with the expanded format for the Euro, the expanded format for the World Cup, you basically have so many groups, and you spread out the games so much that really it's automatic. Basically, every group gets 1 or 2 really strong teams, and those are the teams that are going to qualify. And then it's just beating up on minnows, like England beating up on Malta, and nobody wants to watch that. It's just it's really boring. But for South America, I would say that is the one. That's the one. The CONMEBOL as they call it. That's the one that I enjoy watching, just because it doesn't matter. It could be Peru versus Bolivia, and I usually don't watch those games, but even there's just passion, and they really every country seems to hate the other country passionately, and it's just that they're a lot of fun. And I think now, especially partly because of Darwin, but partly because of Bielsa, I've been trying to watch the Uruguay games. And usually they all happen at the same time, right? So you can't really watch many games. So I've been trying to catch the Uruguay games, and those have been a lot of fun. So Uruguay beat Brazil in the last round, which is a lot of fun. Uruguay beat Argentina in Argentina. It's the first time in 30 years that Uruguay has beaten Argentina in Argentina, something crazy like that, right? So because of that, those games have actually been fun. And I'd say those are the only games that I watch. But overall, when it comes to international soccer in Europe, in North and Central America, I mean, I don't really watch Asia just because of the time difference and also the quality of the games. I mean, who wants to watch really Japan versus North Korea? I mean, that really is. I was looking at the group that Japan have, and I think that they have Myanmar, North Korea, and Syria. So they're just like, let's just pick the axis of evil and put Japan in there and see what happens. Overall, yeah, I think you guys are spot on. But I would still say, and I know for you, Paul, it's tough to watch South American soccer because it's in the middle in the time zone. Yeah. It's like what, 3 a.m. when they start, or 2 a.m. So that's very difficult. But Matt, you should give it a go.
Yeah, we'll see. What TV service are they on, Lubo?
So they have this called Fanatis, which is the streamer service is called Fanatis US. So if you wanted to watch all of them, you would have to pay. But usually Telemundo has one of the games. Okay. So the Spanish channel, you should have Telemundo in your package. So I would say that's your most reliable way to watch it.
Like if you have cable, that is.
That is also true.
I think you're right, though, Lubo, about the CONMEBOL being more interesting just in general than the other confederations, just because, like, you know, they have 10 teams, and typically 5 or 6 of them are pretty good, and then they play a round robin with 18 games to do their qualifying, so you actually get some interesting matchups, and they like happen over the course of a few years. So yeah, it's like that would be like the one area of the world where they're actually playing something resembling interesting games for your international teams. So
yeah. And also what you're seeing with some of the teams, last point on this, is you're kind of seeing a little bit of a changing of the guards with these teams. So Uruguay, Cavani and Suarez and some of those guys, they're pretty much bench players now. So you're seeing some of the younger players coming in. Same with Argentina, even though it's the core around Messi, but you're seeing some younger players coming in. Brazil as well, even though I don't know what the coach is doing. So even if you're just interested to see some of the younger players that may in a year or two make their way into Europe. So the likes of Andre, he started against Colombia next to Bruno Guimaraes. So it was interesting to see how Andre would do against quality opposition at the national team setting. And I would say he looked better than Bruno in midfield. And part of it is, I think he might have been the only player from Brazil who knew what the hell to do, because the coach of Fluminense is also the coach of the Brazil national team. And he's been trying to bring this crazy helter-skelter playing style from Fluminense to the Brazil team, and you could see just players that are really confused. And I think that's partly what contributed to their poor performances is they just don't know what to do. It's really crazy to watch them. And Andre seems to be the only one who has an idea on the pitch what he's supposed to do and where he's supposed to play, which is also why I think he's looked quite good in the last couple of games, even though Brazil has actually lost them.
Yeah, going with a guy who's an interim head coach and this is his part-time job, what could go wrong?
Right. I honestly, they're just waiting for Ancelotti, right? That's pretty much known.
Yeah.
That Ancelotti is going to come in next in the summer. He's already agreed to that, and so they've basically decided just to give Diniz this interim, and Diniz is a very hot property because of Fluminense winning the Copa. So they've just said, or whatever. And Brazil, even if you lose a couple of games, it's embarrassing for them. But ultimately, Brazil are going to qualify. They're going to be one of the top 5-6 teams in South America, regardless. So I think they're just giving it a bit of a wild ride until Ancelotti comes in. But it is a result that the last 2 losses have caused a lot of panic in Brazil. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. So the one good thing about these international breaks is it's the time when we do our podcast. So let's turn our sights to Liverpool and what's happened since the last international break. In the Premier League, Liverpool won 3 and drew 1 to bring them into second place. In the Europa League, Liverpool traded wins with Toulouse home and away, but still sit first in the Europa League group, and they look likely to win the group. Liverpool also advanced to the quarterfinals of the League Cup with a win against Bournemouth. So on our preview podcast, we all sort of agreed that Liverpool were the second best team in the league, and that seems to have borne out over the last 12 games. So do you think Liverpool has played their way into the title race? Lubo, do you want to start us off on that one?
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
Well, I think Liverpool has moved ahead of Arsenal as the biggest title race challenger of Man City, and it was not immediately clear. I think what we said at the last podcast is that Liverpool will be a title challenger. Whether it would be the title challenger was still unclear. But I would say, based on the performances the last few weeks, and just not just the performances, but the underlying stats, and I think we'll talk a little bit about that as well, but also just how the team has come together and continues to come together. It gives you confidence that Liverpool could give Man City a title challenge. I still think that Man City would be considered the favorites, even though only 1 point lead is about as, especially given that we would drop points to Luton, right? But just being 1 point behind Man City at this stage after 12 games is probably about as much as you could have hoped for. So, do I think that Liverpool is in the title race? Yes. Do I think that Liverpool is same odds as Man City? No. But I don't think the gap is as big as some of the projection models have them, or as some of the bookies have them. I would give Liverpool, I would say 30% chance for the title, and maybe 50% to Man City and 20% to Arsenal, something like that. Just still Man City is the favorite, but I would say they're about 50-50 against the field.
Right. I think that Liverpool has played their way into the title race. It's just how long are they going to stay there, right? That's the thing. It's through 1/3 of the season, Liverpool are hanging right there with City. In the absence of some bad refereeing decisions, Liverpool would be first right now by a couple of points, which as we talked about last time, that's pretty frustrating. But you can't really do much about that, and we just have to find ways to win with knowing that that's going to be something that's stacked up against Liverpool. So one thing, in just looking about how long Liverpool can sustain being in the title race, is looking at the XG goal difference per 90. So City, regardless of the season for the last 6-7 years, always win that category, right? And by and large, that's a good indicator that they're going to win the league. Other than when Liverpool won in 1920, City still had like that better underlying metrics than Liverpool. But Liverpool just controlled game state and did enough to win, and that actually propelled them to the title. So Liverpool are actually tracking a little bit ahead of that 1920 season right now with a 0.99 XG difference per 90. But that 0.99 is a little bit behind sort of their higher outputs of other seasons. Like 2 years ago, that was Liverpool's best statistical season from that metric. And so Liverpool being at 0.99, 12 games through with a harder schedule, I would expect that to start to come up. And they will actually, start to like see some things happening in terms of performances to be able to sustain that. The other thing is like the difference between them and City is much smaller. I think that City's only at 1.1 XG goal difference per 90. And that is actually quite a bit lower than they've had in previous seasons. So it's like the gap between the two teams is just not as big. So I think that could bode well for sort of a sustained title race for Liverpool. So Paul, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you guys have pretty well covered it there. I do think the big question at the start of the season was always how quickly could the additions settle, and how fast could then that allow us to kind of reach the levels that we essentially knew that Liverpool could reach. But would we be able to do that this season? And I think what the first 12 games have shown us is that they've settled really quickly. And in conversations that we've had throughout last season, we've pretty much always came to the summary that we weren't as bad as the results were showing us to be, but we were lacking in that midfield department. So, going from 2 seasons ago where you have the quadruple challenge to last season where you have an abysmal season by our standards, not achieving Champions League qualification. You would think coming into this season, we're going to hit somewhere in between those kind of 2 points. We're not going to challenge for a quadruple this season, but at the same time, you would have expected us to raise the level that qualifying for the Champions League was pretty much a foregone conclusion, that we would do something in Europa League and that we probably would be able to sustain not a title challenge per se, but we should be able to maintain a pretty steady second, third kind of approach to the season. So I think the first 12 games has effectively shown that that's where we're at. I think what is going in our favour is that City are not as good as what they have been. I think teams aren't scared as much as they have been previously to attack City. I think City defensively are a bit frail. They're not Luton frail, but they're not they're not bottom of the table frail, but they're frail enough in terms of like comparison to the heyday of their defensive ability. So I think other teams, you even think of teams like Wolves and whatnot, giving them a bit of a game and taking teams taking points off them that you wouldn't necessarily have thought were going to do that. So I think that's definitely working in our favour in this, and I don't see any reason why over the season that'll change any differently. There's an awful lot of talk, common that City are probably going to need to buy 2 midfielders next summer, whether they buy one in January and one in next summer's transfer window and whatnot. And like we're going to do business as well. So I do think that overall, the question, have we played ourselves into a title race? Possibly. I also think you can flip that and go, have other teams played us into the title race? And I would go, yeah, possibly that as well. Spurs starting the season well, but again, not. I think they've flattered a bit in the results that they've got. I still look at that game where we had 2 men sent off, and at points with 9 men, we still looked as if there might be an opportunity to go and get a winning goal. I think a lot of people have expected stuff from Newcastle, and they've done bits here and there. Like I'm just not an Arsenal. I don't get the hype with Arsenal. I never have, because I've kind of watched them and went, you're overachieving, and whenever we get back to our level, whenever some of the other teams, Chelsea, you have to think at some point Chelsea are going to click, and there's just going to be different teams that are going to hit in the round there. So I think this is more of a season where level playing field isn't the right term, but I do think that Austin City are effectively back to being the top two. And I possibly think that the gap between Austin City isn't as big as it has been in previous seasons, which is really weird because in previous seasons we finished 1 point behind them. But there's just something that it feels as if it isn't as big as what it has previously been. So, I'm of the viewpoint that we have played our way into a title race, but also other teams have allowed us, kind of afforded us that opportunity.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Like Tottenham are 4th and Chelsea's 10th, but they'll probably both end up around 7th. Just because of how one has underperformed to start the season and one has overperformed, and I think that's like regression to the mean will have them meet, somewhere between 6th and 8th. If you look at just some of the other numbers, like one of the things we complained about on the podcast last spring is Liverpool would score like a ton of goals in one game and then just not score very consistently across the other games. Whereas this season, it's been more like the finishing has been consistent across the game. So you have 27 goals from 26.5 XG, but it's not like 7 of the goals were in one game.
Yes.
So like that sort of like spreading it out, spreading that finishing, and it's not like Liverpool are running particularly hot. So like for instance, like City have 32 goals from 24.4 XG. Most of that is just because Haaland is a freak. But
yes,
they're running hot relative to their XG. That could sustain just because they have Haaland. But Haaland gets injured and they're probably looking around going, what do we do? Because everything is built off. Yeah, because they've put themselves in a position, at least for this season, where he's like their whole offense. So that's sort of what they're relying on. Lubo, do you have additional thoughts?
Yeah, just a couple of things to add on to this is exactly what you're when you're talking about the expected goal, the rankings and tables, and that's obviously there's the caveat for Liverpool that we've played about 20% of the season so far with the 10-man or 9-man, right? Which obviously impacted those underlying numbers, even though we were able in one game against Newcastle to win. We were able to hold on to and beat Bournemouth as well. And so the only game where...
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
From a points perspective in that immediate game where it affected us was at Spurs, right? Well, even though the game against Brighton after that, I think we dropped points because we had to rotate extensively because of the red cards to Jones and Jota. But just to put a bit more context, if you do this adjustment, and I think there's going to be probably not a need to do this adjustment going forward as the season progresses, but Ryan O'Hanlon, who writes for ESPN, I recently wrote an article where he basically looked at what he calls the adjusted goal XG differential, which is just basically the difference, XG difference accounting for minutes when both teams had the same number of players on the field, which also meant that he excluded some of the whatever 60 minutes that we had against Everton as well. So we did benefit from a red card there. But if you look at that table, he actually has Liverpool marginally ahead of Man City in this adjusted goal difference. And then you have Arsenal with a pretty sizable gap. And after that, you have Newcastle, Chelsea. Surprisingly, Everton is there as well. And I think Everton sneakily have had a pretty good season, even though it's not in the showing up in the points. Definitely not showing up in the points now. But from that perspective, I think to me the takeaway here is that when we've had 11 men on the pitch, especially the 11 men that Klopp could select for that game based on tactics. He's kind of like his main 11 players. Liverpool have been really good. So if we can avoid red cards going forward, and hopefully we will, right? I mean, some of those red cards were a bit freaky. Hopefully going forward, we're not going to have those. That I think we should feel pretty good about it. And I think the other, touching on the injuries, I mean, if you look at our team, I mean, Robo is really, we obviously lost Thiago and Bajcetic, but, and who knows when they'll be back. So that's a blow, especially Thiago. I had high hopes for him. But the midfield, 4 midfielders that have come in, plus Curtis, plus Harvey, they've done so well that we haven't really missed Thiago. You could say maybe there were some games where having him would have been great, and maybe we would have been able to, maybe against Luton is an example, or here or there, right? But not having Thiago hasn't really hurt as much. And then Robo is the only other kind of a long-term injury that we've had, which has been really unfortunate, thanks to international games. And so I think it remains to be seen how we do. I think Costas he did look better against Brentford. But it's going to be tricky because we're now getting into the really busy schedule. I don't think Robbo will be back before January. So we have to navigate a very busy December with basically effectively one left-footed left back, right? Unless Chambers gets some minutes, I expect Chambers to possibly get some minutes in the Europa League. But relative to some other teams, I would say Liverpool have actually fared decently well. I mean, even Man City, they've lost Kevin De Bruyne, and who knows when he'll be back. I mean, you look at Spurs, you look at Newcastle, you even look at Arsenal. A lot of these title challenges have actually had significant number of injuries, long-term injuries. And luckily for Liverpool, I mean, besides outside of Thiago and Robo, we've been somewhat lucky with those. So I think if we can continue to get the luck with the red cards, basically not get them, and if we can stay healthy, and now especially after the international breaks, we'll talk a little bit more when we look ahead, is some of these injured players hopefully will be back. These the ones that had minor niggles for the Brentford game. If we can stay healthy and if we can avoid red cards, you have to feel quite positive about what the team has done so far, but also what hopefully can happen in the next few months.
Yeah, I think that's right. We've started to touch on this, but what are the standout performances or statistics that you think have put Liverpool second in the league? And Paul, do you want to start us with that one?
Probably. So, I don't do statistics as well as you guys do. I would say that some of the standout performances has been, from a player perspective, has been Szoboszlai. Just kind of like his overall. Now I know his last couple of games has kind of dropped a wee bit, but you just feel like his. Do you know what really impresses me about him? His versatility. So he'll start the game attacking midfield kind of role, and there's games where he's ended the game in a double pivot, and he's looked really, really good dropping in, kind of maintaining that and keeping the play going. So I think having the versatility, I would say probably, obviously Darwinian as well, has just kind of been. His performances have been great. I think he's been kind of. His randomness and his kind of, everyone talks about him as Captain Chaos, but I just think, he's leveled up his game in terms of, I think Klopp mentioned it just in his ability to press from the front, and kind of the way that he's pressing from the front now is probably less chaotic and more involved in kind of how we want him to play, and that has allowed for better output. I also think Jota. It's just one of those incredibly talented footballers who just has the natural ability to score goals, even in a game where it looks as if he hasn't done anything. So I think just overall the individual performances of players, but the collective performance of the team has allowed us to step up the level, and I would hope the statistics kind of back that up, and you guys will probably talk more about that. I also think that versatility of our players just in general is something that we use really well. So the likes of Joe Gomez, who essentially is a centre back, but you can play him as a right back, and he has finished games as a left back. And I don't think he's had very many minutes as a centre back this season. But he plays the right back role in the same way that Trent plays it. Now I know people will say, but he's nowhere near the level or why are they trying to do that with Joe Gomez? He's not that style of player. But I don't know. At times he looks as if he's looked as if he's capable enough to kind of handle that role and be a wee bit more disciplined in it. So, and yet, was it against Toulouse? He was the captain that game. Early doors, he's up there flicking a header on, and he gets 2 inches lower, and that's the underside of the bar and in the back of the net. So I just think we have an incredible set of versatile players. The argument being made that McAllister hasn't even had a chance yet to play what would really be his preferred role in the midfield, because he's been kind of repurposed in that deeper six playmaker kind of role that maybe would have been earmarked more for Thiago rather than him. So I think that's kind of, for me, kind of one of the standout things. Even, and I know Matt, we've kind of talked about Gakpo, but even his ability to be available as a forward or to be able to be playing in that left side of the 8 kind of role has also been really, I think it's been used really well, which has allowed us to kind of maximise the output and maximise the performance we're getting from all the players, especially at a time when we've got silly red cards and we've got suspensions and we've got these wee niggly injuries, where you can't call on Curtis Jones and can't call on Gravenberch. Gakpo's able to fill in there. Not ideal, but I think he does a decent enough job. So I think one of our biggest things that we have is versatility with our players.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that going back to where you started with Szoboszlai, the consistency from him has been quite excellent. I think he's the only midfielder that hasn't been injured or suspended yet. And so then, because he's available and he plays every game and he does so well, that's been a really nice place to anchor the midfield off of. Is just having him there. Now in the last
Harvey.
Yeah.
Has Harvey been injured?
No, but he's less consistently played than the others. It seems like Klopp has preferred the larger midfielders, we'll say, like the taller guys, to Harvey. And I think part of that is because we're playing with McAllister or Endo at the 6, and both of them are like 5'9", and so having a 5'9" DM and a 5'5" attacking midfielder just leaves you a little light in midfield.
Just a touch.
Yeah,
5'5". Harvey's taller than 5'5".
I think he might be 5'6", Lubo. He's not that big.
5.5. He's not that tall.
Yeah. So 5'5" or 5'6" just is not quite what you need to run through the Premier League. So yeah, I think that hopefully
5'7".
5'7", is he?
5'7". Yeah.
Are we sure about that?
Oh yeah, I'm on Google. Google says it must
has never been wrong.
1.7 meters. He's 5'7".
Oh, he's still a wee lad.
He still looks small.
We'll give him the benefit.
So back to what I was saying is if we could get some more availability from the other midfielders in making sure that they don't get red cards or small injuries, that will help save Szoboszlai's legs a little bit, because he's been looking a little tired the last game or two. But to me, like this, like what statistics are the standout is just Darwin. Like he's the sort of the whole thing. Let me pull this up real quick. So Darwin has played 601 minutes in the Premier League. In that time, Liverpool has scored 20 goals and conceded 4. In the other 479 minutes, Liverpool scored 7.
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. we don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And conceded 6. So it's like when the difference between when he's on the field and he's not, it's just like night and day. Like him, Darwin plus Mo, it just is like a supercharger offense. And then at the same time, because they're pressing from the front, like Lubo mentioned, there's not a lot of goals getting conceded. And if you look going forward and say, like, is Liverpool in a title race? It just depends on how many games Darwin plays. Like, if Darwin plays 20 90s in the next 26 games, Liverpool very likely win the title. So I think it's all on sort of that one guy staying healthy and just getting on the field. And just the two of them, they do great things. So Lubo, what are your thoughts on this?
So at a team level, looking at the numbers, basically Liverpool are here because of the offense, right? They lead the league in XG, 26.2 according to the Opta stats. And as you mentioned, Matt, it's not like we've been finishing hot because we have 27 goals from 26.6 XG. By comparison, Man City have 24.4 XG and 32 goals. So they've really overachieved. And Arsenal have 21 XG and 26 goals. So those two teams have been running hot on offense. And usually better teams do run hotter on offense. But you would expect that they would have a few games where they're just going to misfire offensively. And I think Liverpool, the fact that we do have the best offense by the underlying numbers, despite playing 20% of the season with a man down, and it's not like we've been running hot and we've been consistently scoring in most games. In fact, all the games. That bodes really well. And I agree with you, Matt. It's really going to come down to how many games you can have Darwin and Mo on the pitch at the same time. I mean, you basically assume Mo is going to be available for most games. But if you also have Darwin playing in most of those games, as you said, out of the 26 remaining games, if he can start and play 20, I think you feel really good about yourself. And then it's really the fact that Diogo has really come on strong, and even though Gakpo was injured and not so much, and Luis Diaz unfortunately had the tragedy with his family, those three have stayed hot. But now Gakpo is back, Luis is back, and he scored twice for Colombia, so he'll be flying high. If now you have the ability to start rotating those 5 attackers, I'm convinced we have the deepest and the best attack in the league. It's now just keeping them healthy, keeping them rotated nicely between the cup games and the Premier League, and then just start Darwin with Mo as much as you can in the league. And I think that is the ticket. And then on the other side, from an underlying numbers, we have 14.4 XG against. Arsenal up first with 9.2, Man City 11.1. But again, a lot of this XG was in garbage time, or rather in either garbage time or red cards. So obviously we know the red cards, Spurs and even Bournemouth and Newcastle, they created quite a bit of XG. But even in some garbage time, and I think that was actually what was really encouraging in the Brentford game, is if you look at the XG total for the games, it was more or less even. But most of the Brentford chances and XG came after Liverpool went up 3-0. So that's the other thing that I really liked about the Brentford game, is now that element from 2019, 2020, where we could take a 2-goal lead, 3-goal lead by 50, 60 minutes, and you just cruise You drop back, you conserve your energy. We saw some of that in the Brentford game. And if we can add that element on top of the attack, I think that will be really, really positive going forward. But going back to the defense, it's definitely been Ali. And I would say Alisson is up there with Mo and Darwin as, obviously, Soboslai, we talked about it. He's been just so good. He's back to, he was great last year too. It just wasn't appreciated as much. But if Alisson can maintain his top form and the attack keeps clicking, I think we're going to go deep. So we'll see. And it's just been good. All the things at the individual player levels that you guys said. Dom and Alexis coming in as new players and just fitting right in, playing a lot of minutes, a lot of quality minutes. And it's been actually needed because, unfortunately, Thiago's been injured. Curtis had the red card, and then he picked up an injury. So it's been a little bit, we've needed these new players to come in. But hopefully going forward, we can have Curtis more available. Gravenberg is hopefully more adjusted now to the league. He can participate more. So I think that there's just a lot of positive signs from the front to the back. But it'll ultimately come down to can you keep Darwin and Mo together and just let them do their magic?
Yeah, and navigate the AFCON, right? Because there will be three or four games where Mo will miss because he's going to be away.
Yeah, I'm not even thinking. We'll handle that in the next podcast.
Yes,
the next couple of podcasts.
Next couple of podcasts. So, yeah, we'll look at that point. But we can start looking ahead to what's coming up very soon. So Liverpool return to the Premier League away to Manchester City, and then face Fulham, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace, and Manchester United. Liverpool will finish the group with Lask at Enfield and a trip to Brussels to face USG. So do you guys think that Liverpool can win their first away game in the Premier League at Manchester City since 2015? Lubo, do you want to start us off?
I like to think we can. I mean, if you look at the games that Klopp has played against Pep at the Etihad, they've mostly been very close games. I think we've had 3 draws. There's 2 1-1 draws, and there's a 2-2 draw in 21-22 with that Joel deflected goal. And then we lost that very, very close game, 2-1 in 2019, the 18-19 season. Right, so we've, for the most part, we've either played them very, very close, and we've just not been able to edge them, or we've had a couple of just pummelings, right? And one was in that I think it was 17-18 season when Sadio got the red card, and that finished 5-0, and then it was in April when they beat us 4-1, and so
there was also behind closed doors the 4-0.
Oh, yeah, but I don't count that.
Yeah.
I don't count that season at all. It never happened. But I mean, in terms of how you, and that is fair. But what I mean is, you've either had a really close, really tight game, or you've kind of had a bit of a pummeling, right? And even if you look at that 4-0, right? And it really comes down to, I would say, I don't know, Klopp getting his tactics right, Klopp having the players right. What I am worried about, though, is that 5-0 back in 2017 and the 4-1 in April, both of them came after, it was a 12:30 game after international break. And if you look at even in April, it kind of happened what's happening now, where Pep pulled a lot of his players from the international teams. He kept them back. Liverpool then had to go to Man City for a 12:30 away game, and the April game was not very encouraging. Now, actually, you can now say the April team was a bit of a shambles. We're coming from a very, very difficult period. Man City were flying. How representative it is, but I am a little worried. And I think that Pep is going to be super motivated. I think there's a reason he's kept all of his players back. He'll probably spend this whole next 10 days or next week staying up all night thinking about tactics and thinking about how to neutralize Liverpool, and where we have the South Americans, as we talked with Diaz, with Darwin, McAllister. They're going to come in again on, I don't know, Thursday morning. So it's really a lot of things are stacked against us, so I would take a draw. If you just gave me a point right now, I would just take it. Doesn't matter if it's a 0-0, 3-3, 5-5, whatever the score is. I would take a point right now from Man City, and just having that psychological edge of not getting beaten by Man City, I think will be huge. And just staying just a point behind them in the table, even if that allows Arsenal to jump ahead, I would take a point. I think it would be really, really difficult to beat them. But, who knows? It's definitely possible. But I think we'll need a pretty significant element of luck and good fortune to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good team. It's going to be a tough game. It's a tough one. I think that Liverpool can win the game. But yeah, like you're saying, it's going to take a lot of luck. Need some things to go their way. The one thing that I'm looking at just from the last game out that City played is they give up almost 3 XG to Chelsea. That does say to me that they can be got at. Like their defense is not as airtight as it once was. And you can, especially with Darwin and Mo, I think that you can exploit them a little bit. Not having Kevin De Bruyne there to give them some, possession and attacking, thrust. It's just like, I think that part does say to me that there is some things to have hope about the outcome in the game. But yeah, it's going to be very tough. So, Paul, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you guys have covered it there. I think I said earlier in the podcast, I kind of felt that Man City's defence was there to be got at, and I think our strike force obviously is the strike force to get at them. Unfortunately, our defence is probably there also to be got at, and
I don't know about that, because Virgil does handle Holland well. That's the one thing I would hang my hat on against them, is that Virgil has done well against him in the past. Yeah,
no, you could well be right. It's possibly everyone else around them. I think Smikas is a bit of a worry. Just getting attacked, and I think Bernardo Silva is just like the player you need to be kind of watching out for, and just staying on top of, especially with De Bruyne and not about, and it's just winning the midfield battle and getting that turned around quickly. The attack City is how you beat them. And I think we're as well positioned as any season that we've had to be able to do that. It's whether we can just get everything kind of pulled together to do it. I hope we can. What's the best way? I'm optimistic that we can go in and win it, but I'm not. I won't be disappointed if we come away with a draw. And possibly even you never want to defeat, but you're not gonna unless it's an absolute drubbing. You're not really going to be like, that was a game that we should have got points from. I'm saying that before, possibly after it, we might come away going, they were there for the taking. We should have punished them. But just at the minute, it's one of them ones where people always say, if you gave me a draw before the game, I'd probably take it.
Yeah, I mean, what we saw and the way Chelsea, right? What Chelsea did is they just pressed very, very aggressively. They had very fast players on the pitch, and they were looking for transition. So the moment they could get the ball from Man City, they were going fast. They're going, especially through Sterling on that left side. So I think that's definitely a blueprint, because I think Liverpool can press. I think Liverpool can disrupt. And if we are able to turn some of those opportunities into transition moments, into attacks, we definitely have the personnel, especially if you think, Diaz, Darwin, and Mo, right? Yeah, those three, you put them in, and then you just try to take advantage of every transition opportunity, press, disrupt in midfield, have a huge work rate, and then it's going to come down to when Liverpool create those chances, can you be clinical? Can Darwin, I almost know Darwin's going to have a couple of big chances. And the game could come down whether Darwin scores those or he misses them. And I think it's as simple as that, right? So if you use the blueprint from Chelsea and then you try to make it a very helter-skelter, very wild game where you make it very uncomfortable for Man City the whole game, and you accept that, this could end up being a drubbing, but if we're clinical with our chances, we could also really get at them and really shake them up. I think definitely that would be the blueprint. And then it's just going to come down then how well do you control them, because when you create these helter-skelter transition moments, they will have their chances as well. So besides obviously Mo against Virgil, and I'd imagine it will be Joel again against Haaland. I would not be surprised if we see Joe Gomez at left back, because it's a right footer. If they play Haaland or even Bernardo out there, they both like to come in on their left foot, and so having a right-footed Joe Gomez would actually be an advantage, and you'd not be asking Joe to create much in this game if you're mostly counting on transitions, right? So it'll come down to one is, if that is the plan, can the team execute? Can you take your chances? And then, ultimately you'll need a little bit of luck, but definitely Man City are gettable. And in fact, if the game were at Anfield, even a 12:30 game at Anfield, I would still feel much, much better. I mean, that's the thing, is the Chelsea game was at Stamford Bridge, right? It's more difficult when you're the away team, and it's more difficult when it's a 12:30 game, and especially some of these players have just arrived like 48 hours before from South America. It is going to be tricky, but the blueprint is there. And at the end, even if you follow the blueprint, and if you come home with a point, I think you take it, because then, as we'll probably look for the games after that, the league kind of opens up until, I would say, Man United, but I don't even care about Man United until really Arsenal and Newcastle come to Anfield. If you can get a point at Man City, I think you have a really good run in the league, where you could then string together a number of good wins going into the Christmas period.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, both of you have said, as we've talked here, that you just take a draw and that would be like good enough. And I think that, just going back through the history of like losing the title by 1 point, by 1 point was not getting the results against City. So like failing to get the head-to-head meant that you couldn't get the title. So I think you really got to win. Maybe less so in the away game. And the draw does make it so you haven't lost out on anything, right? You've just sort of like held firm on where you're at, but winning, putting that like extra 3 points on them, that's like huge in terms of like events that can happen in the course of a title race. And I wouldn't accept a draw. I think you got to go for the win.
And I think Klopp will go for the win. I think Klopp will set up. Also because we're so close, and as Paul mentioned, even if you lose at Man City and you're now 4 points behind, you still have a lot of time in the season to make it up, right? So I definitely feel Klopp will go for it. I think that, to your point, Matt, if you can win at home at Anfield and draw at Man City, then that is ideally what you want. And unfortunately, in 21-22, we drew 2-2 at Man City, but we also drew 2-2 at Anfield, and we had that situation where, twice we took a lead, twice they came back, and then we had that situation at the very end where Fabinho just waited too long and had his shot blocked by Rodri, right? And that was the kind of a type of winning challenge for them. So I agree with you. I do think Klopp will want to give it a go, to go after it. It'll depend. I think partly will depend on who he has available and what's the shape of the players who come from South America. I think that will be part of it. I definitely think he'll give it a go. But the reason I feel that you take a point now is because you still have the game at Anfield in March. And I think if you then take a point now and then you win at Anfield, then you're looking really pretty.
Yeah, I don't want to be in a situation again where we're just looking at the City just cleaning up against the rest of the league and then not doing losing it there because Liverpool's not able to get the head-to-head points that they need to win the league, right? And in any of the times either time that Liverpool lost the league by a point, the ball deflected goes a little bit different. Liverpool win. And just like winning these head-to-head games is just very important. And so hopefully we see a good performance and the guys are in shape and ready for that early kickoff on a Saturday coming out of the international break. But yeah, the City are also a good team, and they're at home. So, a draw is not a bad result, but just like how much better the win would be, it's like it's just a huge difference. Paul, any final thoughts on that?
No, it's literally just if you can go into a season saying you get 4 points against City, you're probably happy if you get 4 points against City, just because they're the best team in the league. And I think that's probably, just echoing what Lubo said. If you come away from now with a point and you get 3 points against them in March, I think that definitely sets you up to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Yeah, and then looking after City, you have home against Fulham, away at Sheffield United, away at Crystal Palace, and I know Crystal Palace does have a reputation of a bogey team, but we've actually done quite well at Crystal Palace recently. Then you have home to Man United, and then you get into the Christmas period. Arsenal at Burnley, Newcastle. I think if you got a point against City and then you make a run in those games, I think you're looking very, very pretty. But if you could actually beat City and move basically what would be 2 points ahead of them after Saturday, I could see Liverpool really then putting a foot on the gas and just pushing on and just going through this Christmas period the way we did it back in that title winning season where they just basically just won 10, 12 games in a row in the December-January period. I could see Liverpool just if somehow we could get the win, get the breaks, get the lucky breaks, the deflections, the ref decisions, whatever it is, just get the lucky breaks and come back with 3 points and move into first place. I could see just Liverpool making a huge run and just never looking back for a long period of time.
Yep. Put them away. Don't let them hang around. The longer they hang around, the more they're likely they are to win.
Yeah.
So I think we should start looking ahead to games past City, like you were saying, Lubo. So how much rotation do you expect from Klopp as we start the midweek games in the Premier League and the schedule gets a little more crowded? Do you want to start us, Lubo?
I think you'll continue to rotate in the Europa League. So we have at last, or rather versus last, that is now on Thursday. So there's going to be a long period of rest. Last, because of the unfortunate loss in Toulouse, is effectively a must-win game. I think if depending on how then the Toulouse game goes, it's possible that you win if you beat Lask at home, and Lask is by far the weakest team in the group. If you just beat Lask at home, then the last game at USG could be academic, or it could be that you need to get a point at USG. So I think that Klopp will go quite strong at Lask with some rotation. Then you have the midweek games, as we mentioned, so then it's Fulham on the 3rd, Sheffield United on the 6th, Crystal Palace on the 9th. So that's going to be a very busy period. So I think Klopp, there will be rotation. I think Klopp will take the game against Lask strongly enough, but also with an eye to the upcoming 3 games. And that's where I think that the depth that we spoke about, hopefully everybody comes back healthy from the international break. Hopefully we get Curtis and Ryan, and we get Ibu and Joe all back. And David Lynch posted an article yesterday on This is Anfield that all 4 of them should be back after the international game. So if they're all fit and you could set it up, I expect some rotation. And then beyond that, then how it looks in the away game against USG, which is right before the game is United, and then what it looks like for the game against West Ham, which is in the cup after that. I think some of that will come down to kind of what the results have been, what the standing looks like in the Europa League table at the time in the group. But I definitely feel until the game at USG, Klopp will take it quite strongly, but luckily and hopefully he will have pretty much everybody back. And so he'll have available players to rotate. And I think getting Curtis back is going to be huge for the league games. In fact, I would like to see Curtis against Man City. I think that is the type of game where Curtis really excels relative to someone like a Gravenberg, or obviously Harvey because of the physicality. So I expect Klopp to go. Let me put it this way: I expect Klopp to rotate, but I expect him to go as strong as needed in the next 4 or 5 games to get wins.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that you could still see pretty significant rotation against Lask just because they are so weak. But we'll see what happens in the Toulouse USG game. They got a draw in the first matchup that they had,
which was at USG.
Yeah, and Toulouse only beat Liverpool based on some really, really good finishing that you're probably seeing like once or twice a season. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But yes, I do think that what we'll see is not quite the level of rotation that has happened in previous seasons, where like a couple of years ago, where like Klopp did like 8 changes against Everton in a midweek derby. I don't know that we'll see that again this season. I think that what we'll see is probably like as we go through December, like 3 to 4 changes per game. And it's nice that as of now, the players that Liverpool need to be available are available, with the exception of Andy Robertson. So that just will put a little bit more strain on Joe Gomez.
I think the game at Sheffield United, which is tough because you're going Thursday versus Lask, Sunday versus Fulham, Wednesday at Sheffield United, and then Saturday 7:30 a.m. again, or 12:30 a.m. UK time at Palace. I think the Sheffield United game, that midweek game, could see pretty significant rotation because of just how it's situated between the Fulham game and also a game at Palace, which is going to be a tougher one. But also just Sheffield United is by far the weakest team on that schedule. I mean, in the league. So I could see Klopp just rotating fairly heavily, potentially having some of his regulars available to come in the second half if needed. But I think that is the one game where I expect it to be that 7-8 players rotated like he did versus Everton, right? But I think if even then, even our heavily rotated squad should be good enough to beat Sheffield United.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think what has been good is Jarell Kwanzaa. has been getting minutes at the end of a couple of games. So I think where we have pressure on Joe Gomez because of Andy Robertson's injury, we probably have a wee bit of relief in that then you've got Jarrell who can come in and play, see out 10, 15, 20 minutes of a game, or possibly even that Sheffield United game, or I would assume the last game. He'll be an option to play in centre back where, previously you might have used Joe Gomez in those games, or you might have had to play Ibu and Matip. So I think he's offering us a bit more flexibility around what Joe Gomez can do. So that might be a wee bit of a saving grace for the fact that Andy Robertson's injured. I would say against, in the last game, we probably will see a fair amount of changes. I do get the argument that was made there about the fact that, you still need to get 3 points from this game and you want to go strong, but the phrase "go as strong" as what we need to win the game. I think use that, Matt. I think that's probably the right approach. We can be strong without necessarily having to play, Verge, Joel, Trent, Szoboszlai, Salah, Nunes, Jota right from the start in that type of game. We should be strong enough in depth that we don't need to be starting just as strong as that. But it's Jurgen. There's been games when you've been like, why on earth has he went so strong in this game? So sometimes he does stuff like that. Wasn't there a Champions League game, the last group game, was it last season or the season before? And he went super strong and someone got an injury in it. And it's like, why on earth did you even, we had no need to go as strong as that. He loves rhythm. But I think probably when you look at it here, he's got enough games to maintain rhythm without having to go super strong, against Lask and against Sheffield United. So I do think we have options. I think if we can keep the midfield fresh, because we know that Dom has played an awful lot of minutes in an awful lot of games. So if we can find a way to keep that rotation going, Curtis coming back is a massive one. If we can find a way that we can get good output from Harvey, and like Harvey does pretty well when he comes in. I'm not too sure about him starting, but he seems to do really well when he comes in and joins a game. He gives a different option and a different variable there for what's happening. So I do think it's just in-game management so far this season has been really good from Klopp. And I think that's just what we need to keep going with. It's not necessarily the starting lineup always. It's just how he then manages minutes throughout the game. I think he's been very good at that, and just keep that kind of going. We'll see us through. There will be rotation. There has to be rotation, just because of the way the games fall. But I think they fall in our favour, even though you're away at Sheffield United, you're away at Crystal Palace, you're away at Union. I do think there still is, it's still favourable enough, those games where you can have good rotation and keep players moving and keep giving plenty of players plenty of minutes without necessarily running everyone into the ground.
Yeah. I think what makes last interesting is that the Man City game is basically Saturday at lunchtime and Lask is Thursday night, right? So you could basically play everybody, pretty much everybody who starts against Man City could theoretically start versus Lask if needed, with an eye then on the game at versus Fulham on Sunday. And the argument could be, do you start maybe a more rotated team against Lask, and then you have like the likes of Mo and Dom as kind of options in break glass in case of emergency, or do you say, listen, just don't dilly-dally, start them, have them play 60, hopefully you're up 3-0 by that time, then you bring in the subs, you give them rest for the last 30 minutes, have them ready for Fulham. So and it's going to, a lot, as you said, a lot is going to come down to rhythm, because I think the other challenge has been with the international games and who's played and where it's played and how many minutes have they played. The coaches are going to look at this and say, who needs to get minutes in the legs now, because then December is going to be just crazy, games every 3 days. So I think you want to also you want to win that game against Lask, especially because it's at Anfield. You want to get those 3 points. If you win and to lose, draw, basically you've won the group.
You're through.
So there's a lot riding on it. But I also think a lot will depend also on who needs minutes in the legs. So they're topped up. They're ready now to play 2 games a week until January, right? So, but regardless, I feel pretty confident that one way or another, Liverpool will beat Lask, and then you have 3 very winnable Premier League games before then you go into the last group game, and hopefully by that time you can just play the very rotated side, and you don't care, right? You can just give a draw if you want to, and then you go into the festive feature against Man United again. And I think and we'll look more at that in the next podcast, I think, but just the way the Christmas period has broken up for us is actually very favorable, because you play those 3 games at home: Man United, Arsenal, and Newcastle. So you're not going to be traveling a lot. The games are spaced out pretty well. We don't have a game, every 2 days. Sometimes they put a game on like a Monday and then a Wednesday, right? Which is just insane. You don't even have time to recover. We have a good time to recover. And I think the only away game in that period is at Burnley, and that's not like very far. So I think that get done with the groups, with the Euro, with the LASK and with the USG, clinch first place in the group, and then you can really focus on the Christmas period. And I think then those games at Anfield against top 4 rivals would really give us the opportunity, if we win those games, to really open up a sizable gap over them.
Yeah, I think we might be overthinking the last game just a little bit. Lask isn't very good. The game is at Anfield. Liverpool's going to smash them with the second team, and it's going to be great. Looking ahead to teams that Liverpool have smashed in the recent past. Paul, do you think that Liverpool will win by more or less than 7 goals against Manchester United?
I know this is a tongue-in-cheek question. I do think United will have a bit of pride about themselves and will not want the same scenario as what happened previously. So I don't think it'll be a 7-0. I don't think it'll be a 7-0 drubbing again this season. As much as you would wish that would be the case, but I do think that we should obviously have enough to beat them, and we should comfortably win that game. Of course, it's one of the games where United are most up for in the season coming to Anfield, but I honestly just don't think United have the quality of player that can match us all over the pitch. So it's one of those games where, I'd love it to be a 3 or 4 or 5 kind of win. Of course, I'd love it to be 8-0 and just absolutely trounce them. But if you're going away with a 3 or 4-0 win over them, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be 7, but it should be a multi-goal win. Manchester United's offense is just non-existent. They have 13 goals in 12 games. It's got to be awful to watch if you're a Manchester United fan. And like a negative goal difference at this point. So yeah, I think that Liverpool will win that game, 3-4, like you said, and that will just be more fuel for the title challenge. So Lubo, what are your thoughts?
So you always want to beat United, and I would take a comfortable 3-0 win, 4-0 win, just enough of a beat down for them to feel really bad about themselves. I mean, I would love another 7-0. I would love a 9-0, and I think if it's a little bit like funny finishing, right? If we can start scoring the goals and you start running up the numbers, you can absolutely see them quit like they did last time. I mean, the reason we scored 7 is at the end they just quit. I mean, it was like nobody was defending, nobody was doing anything, nobody was tackling. We're just crossing into the box and scoring headers. And if we can go up 2 or 3-0, I could definitely see them quitting, and then it could run up a big number. But if they keep it close until later in the second half, I would take a nice, comfortable 2-0 win against them. I think the other thing about United is if you look at their schedule, it's actually quite brutal going into the game against us. They're at Everton, and Everton this on next Saturday, and that is actually a difficult game. Then they're at Galatasaray, and that is going to be hell. At Newcastle, home to Chelsea, home to Bournemouth, and that's probably the easiest game they have there. And then right before they come to Anfield, they're home to Bayern, right? And it could be that last game against Bayern is a game that they would have to win, not just to advance in the group, but that may be a game they have to win just to get into Europa League out of their group, just to stay in Europe. So there will be, I could see them going on a run of really poor results in these games, getting smashed by Galatasaray, and then potentially just getting smashed by Bayern at home at Old Trafford, and then having to come to Anfield like 4 days later. In the world is ending. Bring out the green and whatever green and yellow scarves.
The Norwich scarves.
Gary Neville blaming the roof, at the leaking roof for the air and everything. So a lot will depend on how it is, but we definitely, our schedule is much easier. I think we'll have the ability to rotate a lot more. But honestly, on that schedule, the only gimme game that they have is home to Bournemouth, and who knows how that will go. So it is possible that.
I don't think that's a gimme.
Yeah, I don't think it's a gimme. So there's a very good chance that Man United come to Anfield completely bruised and battered over several games, and who knows what their injury situation is going to be. So, I mean, obviously, I wish them all the worst. I wish they would lose all of their games and come to Anfield and just get completely pummeled, and Ten Hag gets fired immediately the day after. But we will see.
Can't believe you're so negative about the informed team in the Premier League, Lubo.
I know. If there's ever an argument for stats are a lot of rubbish, it's that one.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, if you basically look at what have been basically very weak 4 games which they have won by 1-0, those games playing terribly but somehow winning, and that's their form. That's why they're a great team. Just sign me up. Let's see where they are when their bus pulls up at Anfield in a month.
Yeah, I think it underlines how important it is to win instead of draw, right? Just because you get so many more points for a win. And just, you got to focus on winning games. I think this is probably a good point for us to start wrapping things up. So, Paul, what are your final thoughts or plugs?
Yeah, final thoughts. Just that we've pretty much reached a third of the way through the season. We're doing good. We're possibly overachieving where people thought we would be by now. So let's kind of keep that train rolling. Let's kind of throw up the Europa League qualification, hopefully against Lask, and then go on a good run here where we can pick up maximum points. Once we've played City, let's hope. I really do. I want to go into a positive, hoping that we're going to get the win in that one. I think we can play well enough to get it. And I think it's the next game. You look to the next game. Let's win it and let's move forward. And the next time we're talking here in a podcast, hopefully we will be sitting on top of the table. Through to the next stage of the Europa League. Ready to mount a European and domestic double is my hope. So yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed for that one.
Yeah, and Lubo, your final thoughts?
So, from a schedule perspective, as we discussed, I think Man City is going to be tough, but in many ways that's almost the free hit that you get. You go there, you play with the house money. If you can get a result, then I think you're just in great shape. But to me, it's really the games after that that Liverpool should really make sure to win, not draw any of these games, not drop points, especially in the league. Just whatever happens at City, just come out of that game, look forward, and then try to basically win pretty much all the games going forward from there, and then see where you are come January 5th or 4th when Mo has to go to AFCON, stupid AFCON. And I think the other thing to just say, I was reading Virgil. He was asked about the season and what it would take and to win trophies or to be in the title race. And he said, well, we just need to be lucky with injuries and we need to get the right decisions and we need to have consistency. And that's pretty much it. That's, you like to think it comes down to transfers and signings and this and that. And it's like, you just need the ball to bounce in and you need the refs not to give you red cards. And the VAR not to allow goals, and if those things happen, you could be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, let's go get this win against City and start the snowball. So I'd like to thank everybody for listening. Until we talk to you again in a month, up the Reds.
Up the Reds.
Up the Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.